We are live. Good evening, everybody. Oh, thank you for sharing me out. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to One on One with Uncle David. My guest tonight is Mr. Isaac Barnes. Waiting for him to come in. So, hello, Tavia. Hey, Jeffrey. Hello, Lily. Yes, I'm waiting for my guest. So, how's everybody doing this evening? Hey, Keto. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. My guest tonight is Mr. Isaac Barnes. He is the president of EMINENT-IT, which is a full service consulting firm. They work with the executive office of the president of the United States, the U.S. Mint, State Department, and other offices within the government. And he is also, as I said, an entrepreneur and a motivator. Hey, G fam. And he's going to share with us how why he started the company and how it got started and some of his motivational skills and why it is important to grow and how to grow your business. And you know, so we're just waiting for him to pop in and see how that goes. So everybody have a good day today. As you can hear, I'm working with a new mic. Well, not a new mic. It's my son's mic, and so he said I could use it. Can you all hear me? Is it clear? guess that means you can hear me, unless you're reading my lips, Tavi. So how does it sound? Oh, I sound great. Thank you. This tends to happen from time to time. These things will happen, so I have to make sure that I don't let this discourage me. I don't see now you're asking questions that are above my pay grade, G. But it is a Samsung. Hold on, I'm gonna tell you exactly what it is because a Samsung G Track Pro. Like I said, this is my son's. Hey, Sonia. Excuse me 1 second, y'all. Oh, okay, thank you. Sounds a lot better than the other mic, I presume. Excuse me. I need to get a cough button. Well, hey, Uno. Long time no see. How you been? Sonia Waddy. Oh, that's your phone back there. No, I can hear myself. I said I could hear myself. If you can give me a few minutes, I'm waiting for my guest to. I text him to see if everything's okay. Once again, welcome everybody. Thank y'all so much for your patience. I'm just waiting for my guest to arrive. Maybe he's caught in traffic. Y'all know how it is. And besides, he's extremely busy. So we'll see how this goes. Again, thank you for your patience. Thank you for sharing me out. Thanks for the thumbs up. Here we go. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me bring Mr. Barnes on board here. Thank you again for your patience. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Isaac Barnes. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Oh man, it's been an interesting day, but doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Sorry for
Okay.
being late. I appreciate everybody's patience.
Oh, it's understandable. So how's it going?
Oh, it's going good, man. Going good. I just relocated. I'm down in Atlanta now.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I just relocated. So I'm still in the process of moving. I just spent a day trying to get my internet set up.
Oh,
So
I know how that can be.
yeah, the guy just left an hour ago, so I'm still in the
Okay.
process of getting stuff set up. How's everything with you?
Everything is going well. I want to thank you for doing this. I'm truly honored. When Tavia first told me, she was like, "Yeah, I got this guy. He said he's going to be the president one day," and I'm thinking that she's talking about some little kid. You know how they have these dreams and aspirations, and then she's like, "Yeah, I used to work with him." I'm like, "Wait a minute, she used to work with him? Hold on." And then what I did was I Googled you,
Okay.
and what came up was future president of the United States. And I'm like, okay, so he's talking about manifesting his greatness and doing all these things. He's already started to manifest it by switching up the algorithms on Google. Because usually when you Google somebody, it's like, okay, there's their name and this is what they do and whatever. But you've talked about it so much, I guess, and put it in the universe that it has no choice but to let us know exactly what's going on.
Exactly. And you get it. That's exactly the goal. That's what the objective is when you put things out there, you speak it into existence, and then you put actual energy and effort behind it, it can manifest. So it's interesting that you brought this up from that perspective, because this is something that I've been wanting to do and saying for years. This isn't something new. I just started publicly saying it to people, but
Okay.
it's been an internal desire of mine for at least 20 years at this point. So seeing President Obama pull it off definitely added some fuel to the fire and made me believe that it was actually possible. But I would say it's something that I definitely have wanted to do for years, man. Like, and it sounds crazy, right? You rarely meet somebody that wants to take on that
Yeah.
level of scrutiny and that level of stress. But I feel like I've been catapulted in that direction throughout my career, and I've been fortunate enough to be put in some situations that made me feel even more prepared at the end of the day for it. Obviously, there's no job on earth that can prepare you for that job, because you literally get no training. You just walk in the door and
Yeah.
you're president now. So,
Yeah. But,
so
I was reading, I heard a quote, and it said something along the lines that if you do not have a goal or a dream that is so big that it actually scares you at the thought of you trying to accomplish it, then you may need to rethink what it is you're doing, because we should
exactly.
always set a goal that people will look at you and say, "Man, are you crazy?" But you're like, "Hey, I'm not the one that's crazy. Maybe it's you for not thinking that you can be all you can be."
Exactly. And you get it, that 100%. And it's more so about striving, right? It's more so about like, is it possible? Who knows if it's possible? The goal is to just keep striving and walking in faith and see what happens. All you
Yeah.
can do is trust and have faith. And that's the way I approach everything. I've done a lot of things in my career that people told me weren't possible and that I was crazy, but it actually happened and it manifested and materialized. And I see this as another one of those things. And ultimately, if I don't make it 100% there, if I get 80% of the way there, I feel like I've accomplished in my objectives at the end of the day, right? Which is ultimately to inspire and empower, right? And I feel like one of the things that I'm super passionate about, and I don't know how you want to run through this, but one of the things that I'm super all right, perfect. That's my type of conversation. So one of the things that I'm super passionate about is that, you know, I am a millennial. I'm one of the older millennials, but I am a millennial. And I feel like it's up to our generation to actually implement some of the changes that we want to see in the world. We are the first generation that has had our entire lives basically living in the digital world and understanding technology and understanding how all this stuff works. And we take it for granted in a way that we think everybody thinks this way. We think everybody sees the world this way, but the older generations, they came up in a world where you didn't have a computer sitting in front of you. You didn't have a smartphone. You didn't have social media. You didn't have all of these tools. And our country is currently being run by people that came up before all this existed. And so we got this duality of the world of people that are scared of it and terrified of it. And then we got the world of people that don't know anything but that. And I feel like as an older millennial and being a part of the millennial generation is our responsibility because we come from both worlds. We grew up being young enough to remember when this stuff was just starting, but we also grew up in it. And we also understand it to an extent where we can be that bridge between both worlds. And I feel like the onus is on our generation to be that. And I feel like I have to be one of the voices of that movement and getting us to wake up to that fact. And that's what I'm passionate about. So if I get 80% of the way there to waking up a good chunk of the millennial population to that fact, I feel like I've accomplished my mission.
Okay, well, I'm in. I'm part of the dinosaur group, but I'm in because I do like gadgets and technology and how things work behind the scenes. Now, I'm not going to sit and say that I know all these things, but they interest me. And so and then I remember I was watching an interview you did, and you talked about not moving in silence. That you should, because people say, don't let people know what you're doing, move in silence, but you have a totally opposite belief as far as that goes.
I mean, if you think about it, if it depends on what your goals are, right? If you are surrounded by people that are that crabs in the bucket mentality, then you're going to have a tough skin in order to fight through that, right? And I can't expect everybody to be that way. Everybody has their own path and their own approach to it. But for me, I've had so many naysayers in my life. I've had so many people around me, and I listened to them. I synthesized what they were trying to say, but I did it anyway, right? So
you have to.
And that's been a trend throughout my life. And so I've gotten to this point where I see it from the perspective of, if you want to build a movement, you can't build a movement silently. Like, it's very hard to get people and galvanize people towards an objective if you're moving in silence. And I feel like the people that, if you feel like that's your purpose, if you feel like that's your mission, you can't afford to, do that in silence. Like, it's not possible. And I also think that manifestation happens collectively. It's not a individual thing. Like, I can't become president by myself. You can't make this a hit show by yourself.
Exactly.
It's not possible. So, and if you're doing it all in silence, how can you get other people to understand what you're doing? And one of the things that I've learned, and I'm pretty sure you've experienced this as well throughout your career and throughout your life, is when you tell people stuff, all of a sudden they start thinking of ways to do what you're trying to do that you may never even thought of, right? So by being silent that whole time, you're blocking your blessings. And that's what I found throughout my career is it's not about being braggadocious or being boastful. It's about being communicative, right? And speaking to people in a way that they understand what your vision is and they can see how they fit into that vision. And that's the goal.
Okay. Okay. Now that makes sense to me. I'm really, because I tell people you're never too old to learn and you're never too young to teach. So you have to have an open mind and listen, because the only way that I'm going to be able to progress with this show is to find the people that are doing it and watch and listen, but also reach out to people that I need to tell me, like I told you in the text, somebody to teach me what I don't know that I know that I don't know.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you're not expressing your vision, and I look at it as words of power. Obviously, if you don't really believe in what you're doing, then yes, you should be super quiet about it until you get to a place where you truly believe it yourself. And once you get to that place, I feel it's your duty, if that's truly your mission, it's your duty to communicate, because who knows who you're going to inspire, right? Who knows who you're going to empower by telling them what you're working on and what you're focused on. And I feel like as a society, we've gotten to this place where we demonize dreaming, we demonize manifestation and wanting more than what you have in front of you and believing and having faith that it's possible. We've demonized that. And I just want to bring that back to the conversation.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's see. All right. I guess I have been doing some research.
Okay.
2 tips, 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Man, I liked it. I went through it and I'm like, oh my goodness. But it was episode 10.
Okay.
The question for me is, how do you, or it was making your business attractive.
Yeah.
What are some of the tips that you could offer for someone like me, for instance, who's trying to make my show attractive? What do I need to do?
I think this conversation we were just having is the perfect segue into it. One of the things that I've learned throughout my journey of entrepreneurship, and I've seen other people do it as well very, very effectively, is being able to understand what your vision is, right? Like, we can take this show for an example. If your vision is, I want to have a YouTube channel and I want it to be one of the most popular YouTube channels because I want more people to be happy on purpose, right? If that's what it is, then you can weaponize that and galvanize that and use that in a way that inspires other people to help you make that happen. And I think one of the best ways to make your business attractive is to have a vision that's selfless. Have a vision that encompasses other people, and actually people, when they hear it, they can see exactly how it impacts other people's lives. And that will inspire the people around you to want to contribute and want to help. And it creates that tribe mentality of like, okay, this is another of our brothers or one of our sisters that's trying to do something positive in life. Let's see if we can help them in any way that we can. Or, hey, my uncle works at this radio station. He's been in broadcasting for years, and he may be able to help you with how you handle your sound, right? All of these things start coming to you, and you start manifesting more and more and creating more and more over time. And I think the best way to make your business attractive, and as I've evolved in my growth, is being able to communicate your vision in a way where people get inspired by it, they can see it. Like, one of the things that always sticks in my head is how Bill Gates, one of his early objectives was to put a computer in every home in the world, right? Like, just me saying that, you can see exactly what he's trying to do and why that matters.
Okay.
Right. And so the bigger like you said earlier, the bigger the vision, the better, the more, and big doesn't necessarily mean monetary. It's more so about impact. How many people will this impact? What is the objective that you're trying to accomplish, and who benefits from that objective? I think that's the best way to make your business attractive. And the importance of making it attractive is, like, I don't know about you, but I don't want to do anything that only impacts just one person. If I impact one person, that's perfect. But I would like to impact more people. And I think most people feel that way. It's like we create these things as tools and as vehicles to make a difference in the
Yes.
lives of many,
Yes.
right? Because we see so many people out there suffering and struggling and having issues. So the objective should be big enough that it actually solves solves a problem for a good chunk of the population. And if you can accomplish that, the earlier you can get to that place, the better. I think that's one of the best ways to make your business attractive.
Okay. Yeah, because my thinking is I have been able to put my ego aside and understand that, okay, I want to get a message out, but maybe I'm not the one necessarily all the time to be giving the message. Maybe I'm the one that facilitates it, to find the
Exactly.
people to get the message out. And that is part of the idea of the show, is to find people that have a message
Yep.
and to share with as many people as I can find. If I have 5 people show up in here, then those 5 people will get that information. And who knows how many of them really need it, or maybe they know someone that needs it. So,
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly. And what you just said is key. It's you build one at a time, but you think about thousands, right?
Yes.
But your goal is to build one at a time. And even if you do start off small, that small group of people is still gonna, a percentage of them are still gonna think you're crazy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's always the case.
And because people will do that because a lot of times, because either they're afraid to go out and chase their own dreams. So they
Exactly.
sit back and they're like, oh, this dude, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? What do you expect to get out of it? And for me, it's just to help. That's if I can help change the direction of somebody's life or day or that moment, then I feel like I've accomplished something. So, and it's like that commercial that used to come on a long time ago. I'll tell 2 friends, and they'll tell 2 friends, and so on and so on. And I think that's how that works.
That's
I truly
100%
believe
how it
I
works.
truly believe that, so
That's
yeah.
how it works. And it's you have to execute one person at a time, but you should be visioning and visualizing thousands while you're executing. And if you're doing that, one day those two things will meet. And that's the objective, right? That's what everybody's in this for. We're all in this for impact at the end of the day. If you're not in it for impact, if you're just in it for money, it's going to be short-lived
Oh yeah.
at the
Oh
end of
yeah.
the day.
Yeah. If you're doing things for money, it just won't, because for me, money's it's good to have, and you should, and we need it. But if that is what all you're trying to get is money, then really, I
Get a
mean,
job.
success, to me, I've heard something from Jim Rohn, and success is achieved, not achieved in spite of people, but because of them, or
Exactly.
something around there. When
Yeah.
it in service, that's what it
Yes.
all boils down to. Service.
Yes, that's what it all boils down to. And I think there's a much deeper reason why it boils down to that. And one of the things that I always say is money is a byproduct of service.
Yes.
It's not the end result. It's a byproduct. If you focus on serving, you will eventually attract money to you. That's how it works.
Yes.
And it takes patience, just like everything else, but the reward in the end is always worth it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's
Especially if once, as long as you know your why you're doing it. Our job is to show up and do the work, and whatever it is we need will come to us. The people, the money, the whatever it is you need, as long as you show up. Because if you don't show up, then you've already defeated the whole purpose of what you're doing. If you quit,
exactly.
you can't get anything. If you quit, you'll never achieve anything by quitting.
Exactly.
So,
And so true. And I think, yeah, you're touching on a lot of topics, man. I love this. Keep going. This is good stuff. Definitely good stuff.
well, thank you. I've I developed this kind of, I think it's kind of natural, some of the things, but it comes from reading and
Yeah.
listening. My mother used to tell me all the time, just read. I don't care what you read, just read, and so I'll ride the bus and I'll read the same sign every day.
That's
But
beautiful.
it's always been in me. So, and I've always wanted to help others.
Yeah.
I just had to figure out a platform, and YouTube has provided that for me. And so I understand that it's slow, but as I tell people, slow and steady wins the race.
It does. And
So
ultimately, the other aspect and the other area that's related to a vision is your vision should be big enough that it forces you to grow.
yes,
That it forces you to get out of your comfort zone to accomplish it, right? Because ultimately, that's what we're doing this all for. Your reality around you is a direct reflection of the reality inside of you, right? And I'll say that again. Your reality
please.
around you is a direct reflection of the reality inside of you. Meaning, if you're not focused on your growth, if you're not doing what you just mentioned, out reading and consuming content and going inward and figuring out your trauma and your flaws and your issues, because we all have them. None of us are
Yes.
perfect, right?
That is
And
true.
every one of these visions that we come up with and these objectives that we come up with is to help us as individuals get better. Because in order for the world around us to get better, we have to get better first. If you want to impact anything in the world, you have to start with impacting yourself and changing yourself and improving yourself. And what you're talking about is the way to do it. If you should be consuming as much as possible that will get you to that end place of being a better version of yourself, so that you can make a better world or have a better experience in the world, whatever it may be. That's the goal. And what you said and what your mom taught you is the key. Like she gave you some jewels.
Yeah, she did. And people get caught up in other people's stuff. You can't compare what somebody else is doing with what you're doing. Your path is your path, and what's for you is for you. And so you have to get out of that, because comparison is the thief of all joy.
Yes.
And if you're sitting there looking at so and so that's been doing the same thing that you're doing for the same amount of time, but they have achieved more, then what you start doing is looking at them, and then you start feeling bad about yourself, thinking that, well, maybe I'm just not doing it right. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I should just quit and do something else. And if you keep quitting and doing something else, then you'll never figure out what it is you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Because we were all given an assignment the day we were born. We have an assignment. And so you have to figure out what your assignment is and complete your assignment. But if you're looking at what somebody else is doing, you'll never figure out your thing.
Exactly. And I'm going to flip the 2 points you just made. I'm going to flip it on its head, because the opposite is true in certain scenarios as well. It's okay to look at what other people are doing if you're looking at them as a model and not necessarily the blueprint.
Okay.
And the difference is you can model your behavior after somebody else's, but you can't try to become them. And
right.
the envy creeps in when we try to become them. I am not where they are. Yeah, you're not supposed to be where they are, but you can look at what they've done and use them as a model. For example, one of the people that I've used as a model throughout my career, being in technology, was Steve Jobs. Okay. I never tried to be a 50-year-old white guy from California, because I can't be that. It's impossible for me to be that, right? I can't be in the early days of the computer revolution and invent one of the first personal computers. But I can take some of the moves, right? If anybody saw the Michael Jordan Last Dance, you'll notice that Michael Jordan was borrowing moves and borrowing techniques from other people around him and incorporating that into his identity. And that's the game. It's not necessarily about mimicking, it's more so about modeling. And I think that's one of the biggest differences that people get hung up on when they think about that whole concept. And the other thing is, when you are on your own path and you're on your own journey, you have to understand that, yes, it takes patience for you to execute on it. But the only person you should be comparing yourself to is yourself yesterday, right? It's yourself a month ago. Compare yourself to you, where you were before, and that'll bring a little bit more clarity on your progress and keep you motivated. I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed about myself personally is I got to this point where I realized, I was like, holy crap. And I talk about manifestation all the time. I'm like, I've been manifesting things that I haven't been keeping track of. I didn't even realize, I forgot I even asked for this 5 years ago, and it's now sitting in front of me right now. You know what I mean? And I think we all have these very short memories with the things that we've asked for in the past. Like most of us can't even think about what we actually wanted 5 years ago or 3 years ago or 2 years ago. Right? Let alone a month ago. Like I know I asked for stuff last month that I completely forgot about, you know. And I think having that big overarching vision allows you to see, okay, I'm not there yet, but I'm here, and I'm here, and I'm leapfrog stuff. That to me, I think that's how we should approach it. It's just my perspective, and I think that's how we should approach it, from the perspective of, am I better today than I was a week ago? Did I read a little bit more than I did a week ago? Did I learn something new that I didn't know yesterday? And compare yourself to where you were, and that's how you keep making the progress and keep moving forward.
Okay. Now, someone wanted you to go back over why you want to be the president. Now, before you start, I'm in. Just so you know, I'm in, and we'll treat this as your first announcement that, hey, I'm running for president, and this is my platform, and this is why I want to be president.
Okay, so I'll dive into it. Thanks for giving me the floor. I appreciate it. So I grew up in an environment, like my mom and my dad, they both came from the South. My father was a cotton picker, and he went to the military, served his country, came back, and basically moved our family to Michigan. So I grew up in Michigan in the Midwest. I was born in '82. I grew up during the crack epidemic in the Black community. So I got to watch our community get deteriorated and transformed into something else. And so I feel like growing up in that environment, it gave a lot of us, and I'm pretty sure there's more people watching this that grew up during that time and was there during that time. It gave us a perspective on, one, how a community and communities could be torn apart. And throughout the years, you start learning and you start trying to figure out, why is this stuff happening? Where is this coming from? How are these things impacting us at this level? And why is our country not doing anything about it? I think a lot of us in our community and in the communities around the country have asked that question. And so for me, as I was watching all this happen, I got to this place where I was like, is it possible for somebody like me to become president? I remember having that thought as a kid. And I started just having it in the back of my head, I remember having a conversation with my dad about it, and him saying, anything's possible. You got to believe in yourself. You can do it all. So my dad was one of those, positive thinkers. Oh yeah. Personal motivators, all of that in the house. So I had that as my foundation. And my mom is one of the hardest working, biggest heart people you would ever meet. She's always taking care of everybody and always doing for people around her. And there was this, in my mind, I just saw this disconnect. And I'm giving you guys the history between that, then and now, where all this came from, so you can understand who I am. And I got to watch those two go through so much and work so hard and be just good, genuine people to everybody around them. And I saw the impact that had on just our local community and neighborhood. And so my father ended up passing away. He left all of his books that he had in the house in the bookshelf. And I literally my whole life, I never read any of my dad's books. That was those are my dad's books. His books are boring. I want to go read. I want to read something else, or I want to watch a movie. Okay. And so my dad passed away, and he left one of his books, and in the book, he had bookmarked certain pages. And I had never noticed this. This book was sitting there for years in the bookshelf, and I never noticed this. And something told me, turn around and look at this book. I turned around and I looked at the book, and the book was called The Magic of Thinking Big. And I look in there, and my dad actually left bookmarks in the book for me, right? And so at this point, he had passed away. I think this was like 2 or 3 months ago at this point, he passed away right before my 18th birthday. And so I started looking in this book and reading it, and they started talking about how anything's possible. If you put your mind to it, you can do it. You should be thinking big. The stuff that I just got done saying to you guys, that it was in that book. And that was one of the things he was talking about. And so from there, I started like asking myself, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I'm an 18-year-old kid. I know you're technically an adult, but anybody that's been 18.
Especially men, we're still little boys.
Exactly.
So I get that part.
Yeah, we're not mature at all yet. We think we are. We think we have the whole world figured out, but you have nothing figured out. So at 18, I'm sitting there and I'm like, what am I going to do with myself? I'm going to college. I was going to a local community college in my area, and I was going for technology. My family, I was like, we can't afford to put me through college. Like, that's not even realistic. I had like some scholarship funds that I was using to go to that college, but it was almost nothing. So I didn't want to put that burden on my mom. So I had to sit there and figure out, what am I going to do with myself? And so I ended up going to the Marine Corps and serving in the Marine Corps. The day that I was supposedly was September 11th, 2001. I was literally sitting in there in the MEP station, about to ship out that day. My flight was supposed to leave, I think, that afternoon. And the towers fell that morning. And so I ended up getting my flight grounded, and I was sitting in that same situation that you were talking about earlier, where all my family pulls me into the living room and tries to have an intervention.
What do you, they're telling you that's a sign you shouldn't go.
Exactly. You should not do this. This is not the right thing to do. Like, are you crazy? You're gonna go fight somebody's war. And I was terrified, and I listened to the voice inside of me, and I ended up taking that risk. I went to the Marine Corps, and I served 4 years in the Marine Corps. I ended up working at headquarters Marine Corps, working for the commandant of the Marine Corps. And then thank you. And after that, I got out of there, went and worked at the Secretary of Defense, supporting the Pentagon. And I did that for about 5 years. And then I started my company and grew the company. And the whole time, a part of my vision through all of this was, I need to go learn how this country works, because I want to change stuff. I want to see things implemented. And so I use this whole path as like a science project almost, for me to study and understand how our government works at the highest levels. And throughout that journey, what I learned,
when you figure out how it really works, you're like, really?
Exactly. And what I learned is the best analogy I can give is Wizard of Oz. At the end, if you haven't seen Wizard of Oz, spoiler alert, I'm going to spoil it for you. So
you haven't seen the Wizard of Oz.
So one of the things at the end of the Wizard of Oz is they go behind that curtain and they see that there's this little guy back there pulling these levers. Like, that's how I felt getting higher up into the government space. Is like, the rest of the country thinks this is happening, but in reality, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
And what's actually happening is way more scary than you guys realize. Like, and I was scared because I realized there was this huge disconnect between what we know and the general public is truth and is our reality, right? We live in this world where everything has become super digital, and the people that are running our country, and I'm so grateful for them, and I'm appreciative that did that and had that in their hearts to sacrifice their times and their lives to do it.
Right.
But we're at a place right now where we are ill-equipped as a country to, and this is my perspective based off what I've seen, we're ill-equipped as a country to sustain our relevance if we don't make adjustments, right? And a part of the issues that I'm seeing happening is our generation is not interested in being a part of government because it's become stodgy, it's become bureaucratic, it's become slow. Everything that we hate about work, it's the definition of it, right? So they are having a tough time with recruiting us into government. The other aspect of it is they are having a tough time grasping and understanding how all this stuff is happening and how it's moving so fast. They're having to create regulations, policies to account for it all, right? And it's creating these situations, this tension between the American public and the government space. And I think, like I said before, for me, the reason why now is the time and the reason why I started talking about this about a year and a half ago is because I see like we're on the cusp of our generation getting to the point where we're starting to take the reins and we're starting to, like, if you go look at these government agencies, there's more and more people that are in their 30s and 20s starting to get into positions of power, so to say. And we are starting to be more focused on, hey, I can actually impact things. I can actually change things now because my boss is retiring. And the baby boomer generation is leaving in droves out of our government. And who's going to be responsible for taking over? And I think one of the things that I'm seeing is we have to have leadership that has an understanding of both the technical side and the policy and the political side. It has to be a combination of both. You can't have non-digital natives in a position of running a country filled with digital natives because it's going to create too much tension. And that's what we're seeing is like information is changing and moving so fast that they can't keep up with it like that. And that's what's happening. And we need new ways of thinking. We need new ways of approaching it. And that's why I'm so passionate about doing this.
Well, I'm in, like I said, I admire your passion, your dedication. I love it.
Thank you.
I do because it's important, and especially from the generation that's coming up, because you have the younger people, the people that are younger than you, that they're watching you and your generation, and it's like, okay, they understand us because they know about, because for us growing up, there were no, like you said, there were no cell phones. You had cameras, but you had to take the picture and do all this. And
Exactly.
now everybody has a cell phone, everybody has a camera, so you have to know how to communicate with the people that are using these products and stuff. So
exactly, and what's happened, especially since 2008, since Obama got in, is like the politicians are starting to realize that we have to go to the millennials if we want to get elected, right? And so we are now in a position of controlling the destiny of the country, but we haven't woken up to that fact yet. And that's why I said my only goal is to wake us up. If I can do that, then I've accomplished my mission.
Now what this reminds me of for you are, the example I would give is, you can't sit at the table. So you brought your own table. And so here I am. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And I'm bringing along some people that will give you a better idea of what's going on. And they understand it better than you do. And we're willing to teach you. But of course, the dinosaur generation, because we've done this way for so long, we feel like, okay, this is the only way that it can get done. Or if I give up my power, then what do I do? And that, to me, I think that's what it mainly is about holding on to the power.
Yes. 100%.
They don't want to let it go because they feel like this is who they are, this is who they're supposed to be, and this is all they know. But
Yes.
at some point, you're gonna go whether you want to or not. Either you're gonna retire or you'll be, as they say, kicking the bucket. So either way, you can't take it with you. You can't hold it
Exactly.
forever. So the best thing to do is to learn from the younger generation, teach them what you know, and you can incorporate all these things, and everybody can progress from that.
Yep. And one of the other things that I'm seeing that they haven't woken up to is that because they don't have an understanding of the technology, they don't see how it could be used to actually solve a lot of these social issues right now. Like, we don't have to wait. We don't have to sit there and pontificate and come up with new policies and have all these meetings. We can actually go start creating stuff and pushing it out. I think healthcare.gov was a perfect example of how that's possible, but that's just healthcare. We could do the same thing in every other area that the current cabinet sits in. They're just not, I know they're not thinking about it that way because they don't think that way. They don't come from that world.
No, they're thinking it's for them. It's me, me, me.
Correct.
It's all about me, and I have to help. These people that are lining my pockets, because if I go against the grain, then I won't get that money, and I won't have that power. And if I don't have that money and that power, then I'm just a nobody. When you attach yourself to money and power, you lose something.
Exactly.
You lose a whole lot, and you forget about the people that you're supposed to be helping. Because to me, if you're not helping someone, if you're not teaching someone, then really what are you doing? It's not just about, my life for me is not about me. It is about everybody that I come in contact with or that I have come in contact with. And, that to me, that's what it should be about.
Mm-hmm. And I think COVID forced our hand as a country to start considering how powerful technology can actually be.
Yes.
And I don't see it going back. At all.
No,
it's only going to move forward. And what you just said of giving back to people and educating people, like, think about our education system. Even to this day, we still haven't figured out a good model for how to handle kids being remote, right? And how to handle remote learning and remote education. And because we're trying to take the same old pig and just put lipstick on.
Yeah, you can't, that's not going to work. The system, it won't work because the kids, first of all, they can't go into the physical building. And so why not take what listen to the people that are running the system that know how these gadgets and stuff work, because they've got a little bit more practice with it. They came in with the conception of it, so they understand it from the time it started to where it is now. And so let go of some of that ego and say, hey, you know what?
What you just said is that's all it is. It's it's our whole system is ego driven. That's the best way to summarize it.
Yeah, because I don't want them to think that I don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm less than. No. To me, the strongest person is the one that is willing to relinquish and give and say, hey, okay, you know what? Maybe it's not working this way. Let's try something else.
Exactly. And that's what you just said that's what I'm focused on. That's my number one passion right now is getting that conversation started and then actually doing something about it. Okay. So that's what I'm focused on. And I appreciate you for bringing all of these topics up and helping shed some light on these subjects, because it needs to be out there. Because I think the average person isn't thinking about it this way. And the more we can do to get that message out there, the better.
Well, you'll definitely be back on if whenever you want. I can let you know now that your text messages will be kind of busy, because I'll be asking, because I know that you have you talked about how you read, you just read stuff, and so I want to get an idea. I just wrote down the first book of the things that you read, because hey, how else will I know?
No, definitely.
If it works for you, then it can work for me. You know,
Definitely.
it doesn't, it's just not one person that gets this thing and then they get to hog it all to themselves. So yeah,
Yes.
I'll be asking questions, and I know you're busy. So I know that if I text you today, I may not get an answer until, you know, tomorrow, or you know what I'm saying? But I
Yeah.
understand that, because like you said, you're relocating, and you've
Yep.
relocated and you're trying to get your life back together, you know, get it together down there. Um,
Yeah.
so
And
so did the whole
we
company move?
didn't. No, I moved, and
Oh,
it's a strategic move. I see, obviously everybody knows what's going on in Atlanta, but Atlanta is it's at a place where people like us can have a voice and it actually be heard, right?
okay.
And we can actually make moves here without all the additional stipulations of, and I will leave it at that, be politically
Okay.
correct as
I
possible.
I got you. I got
Yeah,
you.
so yeah, that's a part of the plan. Is I had to pick a place where I can start establishing that footprint, and it just makes sense. It's in line with everything else.
So I would definitely be following you. Also, now, do you have anywhere on social media where people can find you? If you could text to me, and I'll put it in. Or matter of fact,
Okay.
you know what? I can type it in the chat right now. So,
Okay.
let's see.
So across the board, I'm either at Isaac M. Barnes or Isaac Barnes on pretty much every platform.
Isaac Barnes.
Yep. And I'm working on the brand. Obviously, it's taking time, but I'm working on the brand so that I can start pulling people into that, and also start building community around some of these concepts, because we don't have to wait. Like, my goal is not to wait until I'm in office to actually start implementing some of the stuff. I'm actually working on it today, because with technology, we don't have to ask for permission. We could just go solve problems.
Okay.
And that's the goal. And by the time I do actually run, most of these problems should be solved already. Like, that's my vision. It's just, okay, this is the next logical step, because this group of people over here with Isaac on their team has solved all these problems. So it just makes sense to put them in office. Like, that's my vision.
All right. I got one question here. What other preparations are you making to be in a prime position to run for the office?
Man, there's a lot. There's a lot of different things that I'm doing behind the scenes that most people aren't aware of and aren't seeing. But I would say one of the main things I'm doing, like, on a daily basis, is using empathy to understand the situations that's happening out here. And what I mean by that is having conversations with people and actually listening. One of the things that it takes, that I've seen and noticed, to get to that place of office, is you have to be able to understand what's happening outside of your reality, right? My reality and my world is not what the rest of America experiences. So I've been doing a lot of setting up things and using my social media platforms to have conversations and talking about these issues in a way where I can have conversations with people to hear their perspective and their thought processes on it. And also working behind the scenes to I just joined the U.S. Chamber of Commerce probably about a year ago, and we are working on increasing diversity across the Fortune 500 companies. And there's an initiative that I'm a part of there, where I get to sit at the table with some of these leaders of these companies and kind of help them understand the importance of increasing diversity and providing opportunities for people that don't look like them, and how to approach that. Also working on building out a platform, because I see us being able to create technology that crowdsources the solutions and comes up with ideas for the solutions. I'm not going to dive into that too much, but those are some of the other things. And I'm also in the process of working on my first book, which is going to be talking about these topics and the vision that I see for everything and how we can actually implement it.
Okay, now I do have a policy question, and
Okay.
I need to ask it. Says G family, he says, what would you do if you're president for the middle class and low income families? And will you raise the same amount of money for women as men to get more pay?
Oh, that's a great question. And this is something that, I mean, I come from a low income family. I worked my way up to a middle income family. So I definitely understand the plight and what's going on there. And I think the main thing that can impact that, both of those two sectors is, we need to rebuild our education system. Like that's something that I'm super passionate about. And I think the plight of the middle class and the lower income families is directly related to how we're educating those families in general. And what I mean by education, I'm not just talking about math and English and social studies. I'm saying real world education and real world understanding and knowledge of how things work around us. And also getting people, one of the things that I've noticed is our communities have been strategically divided for years. And with technology, we have the ability to break down those divisions and start unifying our communities and humanizing our communities. Because I think we talk about the middle class and the lower income communities as if they're over there. You know what I mean? Like those guys, there's no faces. There's no faces to those stories and to what's happening. And I think the dehumanization of the lower class and middle income neighborhoods has had a huge impact on how the people that can actually make a difference views them and sees them. Like we need to stop grouping them up into these big, huge categories and actually turning them into real people where you can actually go dive into it and see who these people are in the communities. And technology gives us a way to do that. And I think dehumanizing them and then educating them on what's available to them. Like there's so many programs that are available that people have no idea about at all that are available to them right now as a lower income family or a middle class family. But that communication happens through pamphlets and flyers right now. Like that's not going to get the job done. I think making that stuff digital and leveraging these tools and getting that communication and information out in a way that they can understand it will help dramatically. And that's what I mean by education, is educating them on how the real world works and also educating them on their communities, right? I don't know about you, David, but when I grew up, I'm pretty sure you knew the lady that lived 2 houses down.
And, oh yeah, and they could whoop your tail if necessary. Oh yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I remember her very well. You know,
Yeah,
I got a lot of
exactly.
experience talking to, but nowadays it's a little different. But
Yep.
Let's see.
And that's what I mean by the dehumanization of our neighborhoods. Like
Yeah.
it's to the point now where you don't even know who you're living next door to anymore. You have no idea who these people are. Mm-hmm. And just like that lady 2 houses down in the past could spank you, she should be able to educate you and teach you about something today. Like, you know what I mean? But there's this disconnected, technology has served as a disconnector, but I think the next evolution of it is to be even more of a connector.
But see, and another reason why they don't want to relinquish that power is because they know that once other people are there, then they know how to bridge that disconnect. Because like you said, it was done strategically. It's divide and conquer.
Yes.
And so if we split them up and we get them bickering at each other, then they won't pay attention to what's going on over here, and we can do whatever it is we need to do.
Yeah.
And so
and we're about to have the least, and I will say this, and I stand by this, in the next 10 years, we will have the least racist government we've had in American history. because our generation is coming up and we've been raised as integrated, like, you know, and you can't have that belief system and perspective going into it if your whole life, you know, you've been integrated, and it's a different perspective. So
yes, it definitely is. And Tavia says, congrats on your courage to do this as well as move across the states so you're familiar with how others live, thrive, and struggle.
That's exactly what it's about. Being in DC is like a bubble. Like there's only so much unless you specifically pursue it and go to those neighborhoods and look for it. You're shielded from so much of the economic impact. You know what I mean? That the rest of the country is like when the housing crisis happened in 2008, DC was pretty much shielded because we have the government as our economy. But being in the rest of the country and learning and seeing and experiencing what other people are going through, it's given me a deeper perspective and a deeper appreciation for the plight of the average person, you know? And, you know, I think DC is an echo chamber of policy and politics and government money.
Yeah.
So we don't really get to see the impact and how things are actually impacting the rest of the country. So thank you, Tavia.
And so I thank you for sharing your time. I know you're busy trying to get yourself together down there because, you know, if for me moving from a block away is like it's like we move where we are now. Maybe it's 2 miles, but I swear, man, it's like moving is like so I can't imagine packing up everything and moving from DC to Atlanta and trying to also keep your other things going on. And so now you're so I know that you're busy and I appreciate it. I don't even hold it against you that you were late. It's okay. You know, you showed up and I'm cool with that. You know, I'm glad of that. So if you had gotten here, it didn't, as long as you showed up, I'm great. And I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to watching this whole process. Now, I will let you know that by the time you run, which is in 2032, I will be 70, but it's okay.
It's all good.
I'm here for the long run. And because then I can say, you know what? I was around for the beginning when he first said he made his very first speech on my show. So
yeah, man. So my mom turned 70 on Monday. So my goal is to like the women in my family live much longer than the men. So I'm hoping and praying that she's going to be around to experience all this. But I appreciate you, David. Thank you so much. And I believe in what you're doing. When I saw what you put together, I was like, this is exactly what needs to happen. The more people that are getting people to focus on what your purpose is and getting different people to come on and talk about how they did it and sharing their story. I think that's what got me to where I'm at is modeling myself after other people and seeing, okay, you know, not necessarily that I need to copy what they did, but, oh, I didn't even know this was possible. And I think your show is giving people that hope and also the faith that what they see inside of themselves is real and it's true and they can do it too. So I appreciate you and I salute you and I'm grateful for what you're doing, man.
Thank you. I appreciate those words, especially coming from you. It's an honor to have you here. And like I said, as you go through the process, I will be watching and listening and trying to figure out what's going on. And if there's anything that I can do to help, just let me know whenever you need. If you feel like you want to come on and you got some stuff you want to talk about and announce, hey, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. Man, I love it. Let's grow this. Let's grow this platform and get you to a point where you're impacting more people, man. I love this. Keep up the good work.
I will. Thank you so much. And you take care and we'll see you around.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Wow. Thank you all so much for your patience and your questions and being here with me. It's greatly appreciated. As I told Mr. Barnes, you know, he can't run into, I think he says he's not running to 2032. I'll be an old man. Oh man, I missed a question on Facebook. All right, well, I'll send it to him. Olivia, I'll send him that question and then I'll give you the answer that he gives. I do apologize. I'm still trying to get used to this watching two gadgets at the same time. But thank you all. We're running a little late today, but hey, who's going to check us, right? But I thank you all for coming out. I appreciate you. I will see you all Thursday for another edition of Live with Uncle David. Until then, remember, be happy on purpose, and know that I believe in you too. Peace.